Hey there, folks. I'm Steve Kepfer, your co-host of the podcast formerly known as Fights with Friends, with my co-host,
Paul Veracci, with your new podcast, Film Fights with Friends.
Yes. It came to our attention this week, this is airing before Christmas. But,
Yes.
But Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah's in 5 days, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah, we're airing on the 20th, and I think Hanukkah starts on Christmas Day this year.
Half my family celebrates Hanukkah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That'd be Hanukkah. All right, tip your waiters, please.
He's here all week, folks.
Yeah, seriously. But it came to our attention. There's not another podcast called Fights with Friends, but there is a YouTube channel called Fights with Friends that does live fight breakdowns
On MMA reactions.
Yeah, MMA. It's like reaction video.
Yeah.
So you guys should definitely check that channel out. But we will be, from this point on, calling our show Film Fights with Friends. So
yeah, I think that makes more sense anyway. It works.
Yeah, totally. It works.
Blessing in disguise.
It speaks to what we do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Film Fights with Friends. So this is technically our first episode of Film Fights with Friends.
Wow, I'm nervous again.
Totally, dude. But anyway, today on the show, Film Jitsu.
Film Jitsu. That's right. We have something coming up with Film Jitsu. Actually.
Yes, Film Jitsu, a new documentary
Mhm.
by Preston Thomas. It's his second feature, first documentary. And this is the film that's going to be our first live event. We're going to have a advanced screening here in New York City.
February 8th?
Yes, February 8th, 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mhm.
It's an afternoon screening, and it's free to all our Patreon subscribers.
Nice.
Yes, so if you're not subscribing to our Patreon, you should start right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, come see a movie and hang out with us. Walk the red carpet. Come to the after party.
And afterwards, come have a beer with us.
Yeah, totally. It'll be fun. We'll do Film Fights with Friends in a bar in Brooklyn.
Speaking of bars.
Yeah.
Actually, this has nothing to do with that. What have you been up to?
Me?
Yeah.
Working on this show a whole heck of a lot after our month off,
Mhm.
right? And catching up and reviewing the cuts that we're getting from, our awesome editors and producers, Rich and Matt, and writing show notes and all that kind of stuff, man, and just running the gym, basically. Yeah. This is not easy doing a podcast.
No, it's not.
No.
I mean, it's like another job.
Yeah. Why did we do this again?
Because you had a fucking idea.
Because it's fucking fun, dude. It's fun.
It is fun. I have a blast doing this.
It is totally fun. So, we have the film screening on February 8th, 1 o'clock in Brooklyn. We'll have info in the show notes on that. And hopefully we'll see you there. There will be tickets available, limited number of tickets. The theater seats 50 people, so it's not huge.
Mm-hmm.
But, we'll probably have about 30 tickets for sale, I would say. Who knows? Maybe they're all sold out by the time this airs, which would be amazing.
That's right.
That'd be a nice Christmas present.
And you got to wait until it gets distribution.
Yeah, totally. But it's a fascinating film and some really great interviews with some legends in the grappling world, film world. He's got footage of David Leitch training, which is not often seen. Not current David Leitch. There's a lot of video of him, of the old David Leitch out there. But anyway, yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. So we got Preston on the show today, talking about his life as a filmmaker, a martial artist, and how he got to make this movie.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
So we've also got coming up after that, we have the Art of Film. Sorry.
Art of Movie Making?
Yes. I always want to say the Art of Filmmaking Movie Festival.
Yeah. Well, it kind of flows.
Does it? I feel like after I say the Art of Filmmaking and then I go to say the rest, I was like, oh, now that's why they went with movie making, because film sounds fucking weird when I finish it.
Yeah, kind of like Film Fights with Friends. No, but the Art of Movie Making Film Festival, they call them the TAMIs, the Art of Movie Making, right? So it's like the TAMIs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And they keep the T in there because that just makes it work.
For the, yeah, totally. It's a great festival. They celebrate the craftsmen, the artisans of the particular, films that are submitted. Costume, props, set design, stunt performance. Like they're not doing the best picture type stuff. They're celebrating all the. We've talked about it before. I hate the term below the line, but it is all the craftsmen, the engine that makes a movie run.
Yeah.
Right. It's a great festival. They have great networking events, and the winner of the best stunt performance will be on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty freaking cool, dude. If you are interested in submitting for your project or a performance of yours for this festival, we'll have the Film Freeway link in the show notes, and you could submit there and learn more about the festival there. When is this festival
It's going to be
running?
June 21st through the 22nd.
There you go, New York City.
Yeah.
I had a blast at the last one. Yeah. It was really cool. I met some really cool folks at the networking day. They had some really great panels. They did one panel on claymation that was incredible.
And you know what else I just kind of realized? Since it's happening in June and we're going to, we are who we are. When you go there, if you have any curiosity towards what might be going on to the second season, Steve and I may have a few spoilers if you want to come and have a conversation with us.
That's true. That's true.
So if you are interested in the podcast, come and check us out there. And maybe we'll be able to tell you what's going to happen in season 2.
Well, I guess we just made it official. There will be a season 2.
That's right, buddy.
There you go. Season 2.
On Film Fights with Friends.
That's right. Film Fights with Friends. FFF. Triple F. You see, guys, this is our second episode today, and we drink beer through them. So, but actually, no, the first one
was early in the morning.
Was early in the morning. Yeah, so we had coffee.
We had coffee.
Yeah. So none of this would be possible without Stunt Contact.
Stunt Contact, your one-stop shop for all your production needs. When you want to figure out what's shooting, where it's shooting, when it's going to be shooting, and who's on it.
Yeah, it's a great production breakdown. It's great for us stunt performers. It's designed for us, but it's really a great breakdown for anybody that's looking to get intel on what's in pre-production, what's in development, what's in post-production. Definitely check it out. It's really cool.
And for those short-term memory people, the note-taking section is phenomenal, so you do not double send 2 coordinators.
Yes. What was it? Phenomenal.
Phenomena.
By the way, it is Christmas this week.
Merry Christmas, brother.
We do try to have very episode-specific toys and memorabilia.
This is pretty cool. Actually, it looks really cool on the screen because it looks like it's just a picture. It doesn't look like it's a,
Speaking of claymation, though, this is the entire Rudolph claymation set.
I love watching that every year.
Oh, me too. It's the best. And we decorated our desk too with lights, although I don't know how well you can see them, but with the lights on in here. But
did you ever watch the funny adult one when they swear and stuff? It's really funny.
No. Find it on YouTube. We'll put it in the show notes. Totally. And then, of course, did we mention Brett Copes?
Brett Copes? Fight or Flight Entertainment.
Yeah, if Santa needed rigging.
Right.
If Santa needed rigging to fly.
Or to get off a roof.
To get back up the chimney. That fat fuck. Brett Copes would be the guy to set it up. He would design that rig.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'd do a killer job because Fight or Flight Entertainment is the entertainment rigging company that you want to use.
Big or small.
For human performance, not to step on our IATSE brothers' toes, but this is for rigging for human performance. And Brett is the man. Yeah, for sure. So definitely that. And of course, there's Breakfall Studios. If you want to work with us on a project,
that's us.
That's us. You can hit us up. We're available.
Come down here. You can rent out space. We train actors. We've got all kinds of great things going on.
Yeah, man. Paul, before we move on to Preston, do you find that people, like when people are thinking of this podcast, and I thought of this because of the new name, Film Fights with Friends, specifically the name film, the word film that we're adding to it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people think because you and I are in the stunt business, they think this is a stunt podcast.
They do. And then also, I think people who just know us in general, think it's just about fights.
Yeah.
Because again,
like a martial arts podcast.
A martial arts podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the film is going to, hopefully help
dispel some myths.
About what this is.
Because it really is a filmmaking podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had writers, directors, actors, obviously stunt performers, editors, animators.
I mean, we use a fight and we use a fight sequence as a platform, to take off the interview, but essentially it's about the filmmaking process of making a fight, and then we love to just go down our rabbit hole and
for sure,
and just nerd out and ask questions.
Yeah, man, it's a action filmmaking podcast.
Because I mean, we even have an anime episode.
Yeah, that episode with Andy was amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait. And it's
what do you mean you can't wait? It happened already.
Well, no, I mean I can't. You know what I mean.
We're back in time talking about future time. See, when we're recording this now, we haven't dropped it yet. But when this airs, it will have dropped.
Have you seen Blue-Eyed Samurai on Netflix yet?
No, it's on my queue because it's supposed to be awesome.
I may know an animator on that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
Yeah, totally.
Believe it or not, it could be.
It got some Emmy nominations, I believe.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I wanted to see if you felt the same as I did regarding adding the word film to. I think it's actually a bit more appropriate for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like it. I'm okay with it. I've been mulling it over now for 20 minutes.
So thank you to the Fights with Friends YouTube. I mean, honestly, we didn't find them because they're not a podcast. So when we were searching other podcasts, we didn't want to rip on somebody's name.
No, we didn't. We actually looked, and then we were kind of surprised, and then we noticed that there wasn't any activity when we first looked.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, maybe they're done.
Yeah, totally. So having said all that, we will be having a new name. And so you will follow us on social media and all that at the new handles.
And the best part about the name change is you can still follow us in the same place.
Yeah, we're just updating all our socials, but you don't have to change your subscriptions or any of that kind of bullshit. We're still where we were. So continue to like us, follow us, share us, subscribe us. Give us thumbs up, emoji, stars, reviews, whatever you need to do to show us
hearts,
love,
pray hands, whatever the fuck this one is.
Yeah, give us everybody listening to this, please give us a Christmas gift of a review on IMDb. IMDb really gets us at the top of the search engine, the SEO. So yeah, get us a review on IMDb and give us some stars on IMDb. That would be an amazing Christmas gift. And if you write a review like we have in the past, we will read it on the show. Even if it's bad, for sure. Even if you're a Grinch.
Even if you're a Grinch.
Or a Krampus. Merry Krampus.
Merry Krampus.
Anyway, man, I think it's about time to bring in Preston.
That's right, brother. Here we go.
All right, let's do it. Yo, welcome, Preston.
Hey, guys.
What's going on, buddy?
You.
Yo. So, Preston, Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas.
This is our
Happy
Christmas
holidays.
episode.
This is
awesome.
The Christmas episode. You are our gift to the listeners.
Wow.
And the watchers.
Wow. Sorry, I forgot my Santa hat.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, man. Hey, and you know what else we're getting for Christmas, Preston?
What?
We're getting a new name for the podcast.
That's right. We are. It's new name time, guys.
Yeah. We found out there's an 8-year-old YouTube channel with the name Fights with Friends.
On MMA. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an MMA reaction video channel. We don't want to fuck with that guy. And, no, I don't mean it that way, dude. I don't want to mess with his rep or cause confusion.
I think you guys could take this guy on. Why don't you invite him to the studio right there?
That's what I said.
The Battle Royale.
We have a Battle Royale for name.
Fights with Friends. No, but we will be changing the name. And so what we're looking at is Film Fights with Friends.
Yeah.
So once we make sure nobody else has that name, which I don't think they do.
We'll triple check.
We will triple check.
Quadruple.
And then switch everything over. So you're actually our first Film Fights with Friends guest.
Yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
So welcome.
Yeah, man.
It's like a brand new podcast.
It kind of is.
I'm nervous.
Are you, Paul? If you all listen to our pilot episode, that's the first thing Paul said. I'm nervous. How are things in LA, dude?
Things are good. Just plugging away. I've been pretty busy lately.
Lots of premieres.
No, I just did a private premiere. I have to put in the qualifier private because
Yes.
that impacts film festival
Mm-hmm.
eligibility in some cases.
Yeah.
So if any festival programmers are listening, this was a private premiere, not a public one.
Yes, and
It
the
was
screening that we will do in New York, which is free to all our Patreon subscribers, is an advanced screening.
correct.
It
So
is,
it's the same category
yes.
of private, not impacting festival premiere status.
Yeah, a lot of
Um,
some festivals want you to be a state premiere or,
right.
whatever.
Or
Oh,
even
which
world
is
premiere if
Yeah.
it's yeah. But yeah, so it was a screening here in LA in a theater called the Lemley. Actually, the Lemley Monica Film Center. That's the Lemley branch in Santa Monica,
Mm-hmm.
which right by the beach, right by the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful theater chain that does private rentals to filmmakers. Very supportive of filmmakers. They also distribute a lot of great independent and art house films and foreign films that if they weren't showing them, they probably just wouldn't be shown on big screens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. So they were great. I did had a good turnout. Mostly people in my circles,
Sure.
friends, training partners, creative collaborators, people involved in the documentary, and also some great new friends who I were invited. Our mutual friend Hugh Fitzgerald brought some people along who I hadn't met, but they were awesome. And
Cool.
so it was all good. Great audience reaction. Actually, lots of laughs throughout the documentary,
Oh, that's
which
great.
made
Great.
me feel good because if you know me, I make jokes a lot in person, but I feel like that's never really come across in my films as much because in the past I've made heavy dramatic films,
Right.
typically, and mostly humorless. But I've always wanted I've
Why does
always
that make me
want
want to laugh?
I know.
Yeah.
that's great that the lack of humor is invoking humor here. But
Yes, totally.
yeah, but I've always wanted to do something that would make people laugh, and it turns out I guess the way to do it was by doing a martial arts documentary, which I did not approach it in a comedic way deliberately, but I think watching so many episodes of like those shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm where it's shot in like a documentary style, and I think I took kind of a Curb Your Enthusiasm approach, especially shooting the combat sambo stunt training session with you guys, the way I did the quick pans and some of the jump cutting and
And a lot of
um
us looking at camera like this.
yeah, exactly. And the puke wall, that was actually one of the big laughs, the puke wall.
Oh, nice.
Uh and that kind of set the tone.
So yeah,
And
for those watching and listening, like, can you see it back there? No, but on the wall back there, we have the puke wall, which is so if you puke in training, you get to sign the wall. Yeah, sign the wall.
it's great. The people in the audience love that. And obviously other people, Erik Paulson got a lot of laughs in the documentary.
Yes.
Roman,
Yeah.
my sensei Gokor Chivichyan, who we'll probably talk about, he got laughs too. I think those years of being under Jean LaBelle,
Sure.
that twisted sense of humor, I think rubbed off on Sensei Gokor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it was good. I was pleased with how the audience reacted. We did a little Q&A panel
Mm-hmm.
afterwards with myself and Hugh, Roman Matichian, who
Mm-hmm.
is a former he fought in the UFC. I think he got the quickest ankle lock in UFC history at that time.
Right.
This was like maybe 2007, 2008. So maybe someone's beat the record since then. But then he long term had his sights set on being an actor and getting into Hollywood. I think Sensei Jean LaBelle helped facilitate that, getting him into stunts and then
Sure.
acting. And so Roman is a great guy. He was in Wick. I think he was in Wick 1 as just one of the Russian thugs. But then
One
in
of the
Wick
baddies.
3,
Yeah.
yeah, but then in Wick 3, he actually appears and has a couple lines in a scene with Keanu Reeves where he comes and presents the medallion or whatever to
Right.
gain admission. I think that was when he's going to Meet Angelica Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly.
And the third one.
But
Yeah. And three.
yeah, yeah.
Parabellum.
It's one of the underground clubs where he has to show the medal or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
The
And
coin to get
Roman
in.
is
Yeah.
and Roman is the guy in the desk looking all dour, speaking Russian. But
Cool.
yeah, so yeah, it was a good Q&A.
So
And
let's dial it back just a little bit.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's go back to. I mean, did you always know you wanted to be a filmmaker? At what point? And let's just also say that you're a martial artist yourself and a grappler yourself.
Pretty
And those,
pretty
yeah,
good grappler.
yeah,
Oh,
totally.
thank you.
Come on.
You're
Thank
starting
you.
to make a name for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say
I've
that's not a
yes,
question.
well,
That's a statement.
statement.
thank you. Yeah, I've started competing. So I'm already 31, so I'm already in the masters divisions. So I have no illusion. I have no grand plans or designs of going pro as a grappler. Well, not as a competitor. I have thought about teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I figure if teaching is something that might be in my future, the more I can compete, the better.
Sure.
So I've tried to, I've done jujitsu competitions, judo competitions. I'd
Right.
like to do a sambo one. They're just so rare. There actually is
Yeah.
one in Las Vegas
Yep.
coming up next month,
Mhm.
but I already signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament in San Diego on the same day. So,
Oh wow. Well, maybe we'll
but
see you in March at the Arnold's.
there's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to maybe look in and sign up to that. But
Pencil that in.
yeah.
Because we'll see you in February at the screening,
Mhm.
February 8th,
Right.
for those listening, the screening here in New York. And then a month later, we could see you in Ohio at the Arnold's.
That would be great.
So,
great.
so you're a filmmaker and a martial artist. At what point in your life did those two separate identities take hold? Like, were you always interested in martial arts? Were you always interested in film? And certainly they weren't merged like they are now.
Correct.
In your life.
Correct.
So like
Yeah.
what's the story there? I know you're
Yeah.
from New Orleans originally, right?
That's right. Now you had asked, did you always know if you wanted to be a filmmaker? The answer is, I think maybe deep down I knew, but that didn't become a conscious thought until fairly late, like near the end of my college undergrad career. I always loved cinema. I always had an appreciation. I think, as a kid, we had a kid of the 90s. There was still analog, so we had a huge VHS collection. When I was real young, I was already high on like the Coen brothers. Like Raising Arizona was one of my favorite childhood films.
It's still one of my favorites.
Yeah, the scene where he steals the diapers with the pantyhose on his head. Just one of my favorite scenes as a 4 or 5-year-old kid. Yeah, and I mean, I was watching all the classic mob movies when I was like 11 or 12 years old. Godfather, Goodfellas, Scarface, Casino.
Sure.
I was, watching stuff that I maybe shouldn't have been watching at that age, but
I was gonna say Scarface for an
yeah.
11-year-old.
I mean, that's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
My father took me to see RoboCop when I was 8 years old. Skipped school, missed a half a day of school on a Monday, took me to a matinee, and then dropped me off at school at about 11:30 p.m. after I went in third grade. After I went and saw RoboCop. So I told Peter Weller that, and he said he lost a little bit of faith in humanity.
That's great.
So you were sort of getting indoctrinated into the world of movies as a youth. Were your parents big movie buffs? Were they big movie goers?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'd say both of my parents were big movie buffs. They had a respectable VHS and DVD collection. It was really a way that my mom and I bonded over movies, and to some extent with my dad as well. Movies were just huge in my upbringing.
Me too.
And still, whenever I'm home, visiting my mom, we always sit down, watch movies, go to movies, go to the art house theaters in New Orleans.
Well, your mom,
Um,
when you were shooting here, at least your documentary, your mom was your PA.
yeah, actually, I gave her the credit production manager,
Oh, that's
but
cool.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. But yeah, so when I told her I was going to New York to do that, she was like, "Oh, well, I want to come. Um, I'll just help, do whatever you need, but I'll just be there to support." So that's how
That's
that
cool.
happened. But
That's a great mom.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure, I love my mom. I made my first feature film was about my mom, or like her life as a young single mom.
Oh,
Um,
what's the name of the film and where can people watch it?
Matriarch, Amazon Prime.
Cool.
It's
Nice.
Matriarch. There's a horror film called Matriarch that I think came out in the same year or around the same time. So it's not the horror film; it's the drama, coming of age, young single mom Matriarch. Um, it was yeah, my first feature. Did it on a micro budget. I did it before COVID, fortunately, like right before, like shot it in September, October 2019. And it was really inspired by, I had seen like what Richard Linklater had done with Boyhood, how that was
Mm-hmm.
inspired by his upbringing. And, it's really a moments driven film rather than a um, spectacle driven film.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of made me realize, oh, you can do that. Like you can make a film about just moments growing up. you
Cool.
know um and so I did that. That was kind of the idea, but making it more about my mom than about me. I mean, there is a character, there's the son character that's based on me,
Sure.
but yeah, the mother character is more the focus. Yeah, so that was my so just so yeah, film making. Late in college, I got involved with a filmmaking club on campus and just kind of worked on some student films. Tried to make my own little short film. I actually just tried to shoot a scene, just take a scene from the play Angels in America and shoot that.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not turn out great, but it taught me a lot about how filmmaking works. So that was my first endeavor. And then after college, I studied history, not film. I did minor in creative writing. I went to the University of Chicago, which is known a lot more for finance, pushing people to Wall Street,
Right.
medicine, traditional careers. Not so much the arts, although
Sure.
there are some people who've come out of U Chicago. The director, Philip Kaufman, um, he did the right stuff, the movie The Right Stuff,
Oh
and
yeah.
the weird movie Quills about the Marquis de Sade, and a bunch of
Oh
other
yeah,
like
with
art
Jeffrey
house
Rush,
films.
right? That
Hmm.
was with Jeffrey
Yeah,
Rush. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
That was actually
Um,
I enjoyed that movie actually. But yeah, I mean
yeah,
it was
no, it's
definitely
good.
weird,
If
but
you're if you're into that sort of thing, weirder art house films.
what are you trying to
But
say, dude?
yeah, no, no. But actually, I think David Goodman, the writer the head writer of Family Guy for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
also one of the creators of Cobra Kai, came out of U Chicago as well. So
Oh,
there have
cool.
been some people, but not a ton. Not as many as say like Harvard or Dartmouth push a
Sure.
lot more alum into entertainment.
So
But anyway,
hit pause for a minute.
yeah,
What
yeah,
what
yeah.
what's one thing that you learned in those first student films at college that what's one lesson you learned that you're still carrying with you today?
That's a good question. I mean, my in those early things that I got involved with, my role was more just as a helper, just whatever job I could do on set, and honestly didn't really learn a lot doing that, but I got exposed to just the
Mm-hmm.
chaos of filmmaking.
Sure.
um, and I think what I learned is that if you want to, make films, then just start. Like if you want to write and direct, then just start doing that. Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about being a PA on a random other person's film, unless it's something that you think will be worthwhile. It's maybe it's a good friend or whatever, and you know that you'll learn something from it, then it could be worthwhile. But I would say I would have probably just started making my own projects in college if I had had that perspective at that time. But that's how you learn.
Sure.
But I graduated. I'd studied creative writing too, so I took some screenwriting classes, which was helpful. Came out of college, got an internship with a film producer in LA named John Shestak, who did so. He did some pretty noteworthy movies, like Air Force One with Harrison Ford and a couple of other Harrison Ford films.
Oleg Toktarov's first movie, I believe, was Air Force
Oh,
One.
Oh,
that
wow.
makes sense because it's
Yeah.
like the Russian bad guys.
Yep,
Yeah, that's an interesting connection that I didn't realize. But yeah, so it was essentially I got a grant from the university to do it. That got me out here in LA. I read scripts and answered the phone and did the typical things that you would do being an assistant or an intern to a producer. And yeah, so I learned, I got to look at how the development process goes. At that time, things were pretty dead in that office. Like there wasn't anything in production. Something went into production a couple of months afterwards, but it was pretty dry. It kind of taught me how the business works, like its peaks and valleys, and there are
Yeah.
going to be serious dry spells. And, so I had to go out and, that at that time he was not looking to hire an actual paid employee. So I had to go out and try to find a job. And wound up finding a job as a social media coordinator for a weird tech company, which is a whole story unto itself. But it kind of kept me afloat financially. And in that job, I met a great friend and filmmaker named Ardit Sadiku, an Albanian director. He's back in Albania now. He worked as a visual effects artist in LA for a while, for a couple of years, and then got just tired of LA and
Sure.
went back to Albania to keep doing his own independent feature films there. And he did a documentary called Alexander about this amazing guy from Albania who hijacked a warship like during the fall of communism. This guy hijacked a warship and escaped to Montenegro and then eventually landed in New York City, and he lives in Queens now.
Oh, wow.
And he actually works as a concierge at one of the Trump condo buildings.
Oh my gosh.
So kind of an interesting
That's
way.
a
And
journey.
Right?
yeah, and apparently he also did sambo too in Albania, or some type of wrestling competitively. So
we're at this point. I know by the time you got to LA, you were already training martial arts. But how did that journey start?
Yeah, so that I always loved martial arts. As I did taekwondo as a kid, as many people did, but it got more serious in high school. I did, I was looking for something. I think I was looking for something kind of spiritual in addition to being physical. So that led me into Shaolin Kung Fu. And I got pretty deep into that, and my shifu, that's the word in kung fu, shifu or sifu,
Right.
like sensei.
Yeah.
I kind of really looked up to him and regarded him as a father figure. He was a former Shaolin monk who had moved to America, specifically the South, and he opened schools in New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama, and did that for about a year. And then I was also getting more interested in modern day combat sports like MMA, grappling. I was doing research about MMA. I was watched every single episode of the show Human Weapon that you worked on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was had all those episodes on my iPod, my video iPod. And yeah, kind of got disillusioned to traditional Shaolin Kung Fu. I kind of got disillusioned to the kind of culty side of it, and also the fact that it's more, I would say, like a fair way to say it would be that it's more performance oriented, at least the forms, not like Sancho or Sanda. That's a legit combat art, kickboxing. But the form, like the animal forms and everything, is more performance oriented.
So you kind of had the Matthew Polly experience.
Yeah, exactly.
For those listening, Matthew Polly's an author who wrote a book called American Shaolin. Who as a young man, he goes to China to pursue his basically fantasy of becoming a Shaolin monk and stuff, and realizes a lot of the realities of that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But
Yeah, so Matthew, I read that book, American Shaolin, at the time, and then ultimately Matthew Polly was one of the people I interviewed for my documentary film Jitsu.
full circle.
And yep, yep. So yeah, so anyway, late I took a year or so off just to focus on academics, finishing high school. Then after graduating high school, I walked into a jiu-jitsu gym, NOLA BJJ. That's where I started in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, grappling, and also that's where I trained under your student Riley Bodycomb, who is a great grappler,
Riley was my first
sambo.
coach.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
So we
he
have a
was
little
kind of,
lineage connection here. Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
exactly. So I was learning, this was before leg locks exploded on the grappling scene. You know,
Hmm.
we were kind of ahead of the curve, learning a hybrid style of grappling with leg locks and, you know, a focus on takedowns. And so what you're seeing in no-gi grappling today, I was getting a taste of that with Riley at that time. And then after moving to LA, I continued on a little bit in college with judo. There was a judo club on campus, so I
Hmm.
got some experience in judo. And then after graduating college and moving to LA, I continued at Henzo Gracie, Los Angeles. Professor Sean Williams, who was one of the part of the same OG Henzo Gracie crew with Matt Serra and John Donaher
Hmm.
back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. He eventually moved to Nashville and opened a school there, so he's no longer running the LA school, but another person from that lineage is running it now. And so I still train there. They gave me they gave me my blue belt, my purple belt, still a purple belt currently, and also realized that I wanted to also pick up again where I'd kind of left off with Riley, with studying sambo and wrestling, takedowns, leg locks, and so I wanted to I sought out, you know, where can I train in like wrestling or judo or sambo, and then it clicked. You know, I'd heard the name Gokor Chivichyan. He was someone I had heard about when I was studying, researching grappling and MMA when I was younger, and it never somehow I thought it would be amazing to train with that guy. But then I realized, like, wait, he's not that far. Like, he's in the Valley or North
Hmm.
Hollywood, so it's a bit of a drive for me to get there, but it's not, it's only, 30 to 40 minutes to train with someone of his caliber. I'd say it's worth it. Um, and so I started training with him also. And so I'm training I really training 4 to 6 times a week between the two different environments. And I started competing in jiu-jitsu and judo and took a lot of losses before I really started winning, but then little by little started doing better, getting some wins, some submissions, and medal, and finally got some bronze medals, and I finally got a gold recently. And I did the Masters Worlds actually with Sensei Gokor. He came out of retirement at 61 years old to do the Masters Worlds in Vegas,
And he
and
won it, right?
he won it. He got
Yeah.
two people refused to fight him, so he was automatically in the finals. Surprise! I think it's
Why would
not the
you
first.
refuse? I would be happy to lose to him. You know,
Yeah,
it's like I don't
exactly.
get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, he won in very dominant fashion. I think he finished with a baseball joke
Mm.
after hitting a huge Hiraigoshi. And I lost, but it was a great experience. It was cool to be there with him competing on the same day.
At what point though, did you have the idea for this documentary? Like, so when you reached
Yeah,
out to us at Breakfall, like that, the idea was already there,
yeah.
but
Which was a year before I reached out to you. We connected on social media a year before I actually showed up.
right.
Like, as like I followed you. So yeah, so that so the filmmaking and the martial arts was mostly separate. I mean, I love Bruce Lee movies and martial arts movies. The MMA movie Warrior
Mm-hmm.
with Tom Hardy, like I love that film.
Oh
But
yeah, it was great.
you
JJ
know,
Perry was the stunt coordinator on that. Yeah.
yeah. So I think in the back of my mind, I liked the idea of doing a movie with martial arts or combat sports one day. But I mostly making like micro budget, dialogue driven, character driven, dramatic films. And I just did jujitsu and grappling for sanity, just because I love doing it, just to keep myself grounded and stay fit. And so they were kind of compartmentalized. And I think I got to a point after making my first feature film, Matriarch. I was really satisfied creatively with how it turned out, and I got into some festivals, which was great, and got a best screenplay award at one of the festivals, which was awesome. I did not break through into like the top tier, like the Sundance, South
Mm-hmm.
by Southwest, the ones that really count when it comes to wider recognition.
Sure.
Which is rejection is something been that's just part of the game with filmmaking. And I was able to release it on Amazon Prime, and I was just really happy with how it turned out. But also, I hit kind of a point of burnout,
Mm-hmm.
after making almost, well, yeah, at that point I'd made 5 short films prior to that, and just was kind of going and going with my narrative filmmaking. And each one, is pretty costly, both financially and in terms of energy too.
Mm-hmm.
And I always made them. Typically, I would make my films very personal in some way, and that can be kind of draining too. Just you're kind of putting yourself out there, or your family history or whatever. And which Film Jitsu wound up kind of being personal as well, even though that wasn't the original intent. But it became, I realized it was personal. But
When did the roads?
um,
When did the roads like officially
yeah,
cross for
yeah,
you? When were you
yeah.
like,
So
all these dramas? You're
yeah,
like, you know what? I want to do some action, some of the stuff I've been
yeah,
training. I want to put that on film.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
just a second part of that is when were you like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a documentary.
I was gonna say
yeah.
why a documentary as opposed to a narrative film with
Yeah,
action
so
action in
there's
it.
there's a well, there's a very practical reason, and that is that a documentary can be done as a one-man crew a lot more easily than a narrative film.
Yeah.
And I had purchased a camera during, like, shortly after COVID. I got a nice Sony camera, and I just, with an eye towards maybe doing some DP gigs or something just to make some money, but also shooting more of my own stuff and being more self-reliant. I'd shot some stuff before that, and I had some other cameras too that were like more entry level cameras. But Yeah, so the film Matriarch, I tried to make that film for $15,000. It wound up being double that amount to make
Mm-hmm.
it. So, like, even at the lowest micro budget levels of narrative filmmaking, you're still probably going to spend at least tens of thousands to make a feature.
Sure.
We
And
were just on
so,
a micro budget that was like 35,000,
Mm-hmm.
and
yeah,
it was kind of amazing what you get for 35,000
yeah,
when people are
I
willing
would,
to support you.
yeah, exactly. Like, even with that 30,000, that was still with a lot of favors and still a lot of volunteer work,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
which I'm eternally grateful for. But that's even with spending $30,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, I wasn't in a place financially to go right back in and spend that amount of money back to back. I wrote a script for a road trip movie based on my grandma that I told you
Mm-hmm.
about, where she met a guy playing Scrabble online and then went on a
Mm-hmm.
road trip with him. I still want to do that film, and I thought about making the guy who she meets some kind of retired jujitsu or wrestling coach or something, or MMA coach, to tie it in with the martial arts stuff.
Sure.
Mm.
Just to
So
put a pause on that, the reason he
yeah,
told me that story was because I told him that my wife and I met online playing Scrabble.
Oh.
That's how we actually
yeah,
first met. And he was like,
and
"Oh my
I
God,
had yeah, my grandma met a guy playing Scrabble who she went on a road trip with in real life,
that's
in her
crazy."
70s. Yeah. So that's a potential next project. But anyway, I knew, that's going to be costly to do a road movie. And so I thought in the meantime, I have to do something that I can just do without raising money or saving a lot of money. And I just got this camera that I've been having fun shooting test footage with, and I around the same time I was listening to part of the burnout with after making the first feature. Part of the process of being burned out was me delving deeper, getting deeper and deeper into the martial arts practice, which often had to take a backseat to my filmmaking. Like there had be months at a time where I wasn't training just because filmmaking can be all consuming.
Sure.
So I thought, well, now I just need to take a fairly deep dive into martial arts just for sanity. And
Well, yeah, and the martial arts can be equally all consuming if you
yeah,
if you let it. Yeah.
which it kind of almost borderline turned into with me getting into competition and stuff. But so I'm still trying to find that right balance, and I'm sure you guys know it's tricky to find the balance there.
Yeah, but it's so interesting, right? So this documentary put you in touch with all these people that are, I'm sure, were at that point asking
Yeah.
themselves those same questions you're asking yourself now.
Right. Yeah, and that's something I explore in the documentary. That's something I asked these guys about. Yeah, so essentially I knew I wanted to do something about I had the idea of doing a documentary, I guess, generally. But no, I think really the moment this is another just fateful moment, but I was listening to a jujitsu grappling focused podcast a lot. The Grappling Central podcast,
Hmm.
hosted by our mutual friend Ryan Ford, who lives
Hmm.
down in Brazil, but he's from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
Great guy.
Yeah, I've been on his show
And
a bunch of times. Yeah.
yeah, now it's BJJ Fanatics podcast, but it
Yeah.
was when he first started. It was Grappling Central podcast, and I discovered it. He, like my former coach Sean Williams, had been on there. You were on that. You were on it multiple times. It's my sensei Gokor, but a who's who, everybody in the jiu-jitsu or grappling world, like all the greats: Marcelo Garcia, Hodrick Gracie, Henzo Gracie, everybody has been, Josh Barnett, Erik Paulson,
Hmm.
everyone, whether it's jujitsu, he's had Dan Gable from the wrestling world.
Hmm.
He's had people from the judo world. Everybody in grappling has been on that podcast. And I discovered it after it had been around for a few years. So I was just binging that podcast.
Yeah.
And I found that episode with you in the archives. And also, well, Riley, your
Hmm.
student, Riley Bodycomb, was on there too at some point. And I listened to the episode with you, and you talked about how the Sambo career led to you being hired to work on the Wick films because the director Chad Stahelski found you on YouTube. At that
Hmm.
time, you were like the only Sambo related channel on YouTube,
Yeah.
so it wasn't too hard for him to find you. And obviously, he's a huge martial arts nerd, so the fact that he even knew what Sambo is,
Yeah.
and he
Exactly.
knew that he wanted that to be in the John Wick movies and have that authenticity. That really piqued my interest. And also, you just happened to, we had that lineage connection where I had trained with Riley.
Sure.
So yeah, I just followed you on Instagram, just because I wanted to keep tabs on what you were doing. But you actually followed me back, and I was like, oh wow, someone who's accomplished in life followed me back.
No,
um,
that was just so I
it-
can spam your private messages with
yeah,
sales pitches and stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then we started chatting. I mentioned having trained with Riley and also
Hmm.
being a filmmaker, and so your career just kind of embodied the intersection of the two worlds. And I listen. Various other people who ultimately wound up being in film jitsu were on that same podcast, and so
Mm-hmm.
that got my interest going. And yeah, so I decided to just start doing it. And my starting point, I decided to just make a podcast, explore it. Sorry, not a podcast, a documentary film exploring the intersection between martial arts, specifically grappling martial arts, and cinema filmmaking. And you made me realize that stunts is where it all kind of comes together. And stunts is not just falling off buildings and getting blown up and stuff like that, but all of the martial arts stuff is under the stunts umbrella
Mm-hmm.
as well. And a lot of stunt guys are martial artists. And so, once I realized all of that, it all just kind of clicked. And I realized that, this would be a fascinating subject to make a documentary on. I didn't know if it would be a 10-minute documentary, 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or, it eventually turned into a feature, 90 minutes.
Well, and
But
it's hard, right? Because unlike a narrative like film, you with the documentary, the story kind of has to appear as you're doing it, right? You're not really you have this idea maybe when you start, but
yeah,
once you dive into it, start talking to people and
right.
participating in different communities, then the story kind of appears. And I feel like the story
Yeah.
kind of became more about you in a way
Yeah,
than them,
yeah, yeah. It kind of, and it kind of rolled in everyone, all the actors and stunt performers and the legends and pioneers. It all, because they're all so important to me. They obviously it all just coalesced in this documentary. But my starting point really. Yeah, I mean, I had a friend, Mustafa El Morsi, who's an actor and stunt
hmm
performer who had done I think he's done a bunch of stunt gigs, and he was
yeah,
on
he's
a
in the
show
film.
with,
He's pretty much like the one of the first people in the film that you interviewed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's also, he has trained and competed in BJJ and judo. And so yeah, I met him. Well, so I met him casting him as the lead actor of one of my short films where he played a Syrian refugee. This short called The Syrian
hmm
that I did a couple years back. And yeah, so it all just started. We had lunch, and I told him this idea, and then he said, "That sounds great. I'd love to be a part of it." And then I guess I had stuff going on. Yeah, life just kind of got in the way, so it kind of went into the background for a couple of months. But then he called me up one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to this party at this ranch where there will be stunt performers and actors, and there will be an exhibition of some horse tricks. It's a ranch where they train stunt performers and actors and horses, and they loan out horses to
hmm
movie productions
What's the
called
name of the name of the ranch?
Double Six Ranch, owned by a guy named Ty Nitty, who's like a master horseman. And so I just showed up with my camera and just was blown. Like I'd never experienced anything quite like it.
hmm
So it kind of served as an entry point into the whole world. And yeah, it wound up being like a little introduction. Like it's, like 2 or 3 minutes in the opening of the film. I met some really colorful characters there. And then, but it kind of kept, the network expanded from there. I wound up
hmm
meeting Mustafa's friend and collaborator, Elsa Ames,
She's in
who,
the film too.
Hmm.
That's
yep,
yeah.
yep.
She
Also
does a
become a
great
good,
stair fall in the
yeah,
movie. Yeah, they show that
yeah.
stair.
No,
Yeah.
she's awesome. She's an actor, stunt performer, and we wound up later reconnecting at 87 North Productions in the training program there, just separately. But I saw her there, and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" um, but the so that would I also interviewed a great guy named Malachi Silva, who's a jiu-jitsu black belt competitor and also an actor. And he now owns a jiu-jitsu school in Kingston, New York, upstate New York. But at that time, he was living this crazy nomad life, living in a van,
Right.
competing jiu-jitsu, doing some acting stuff on the side. And so to me, he just kind of in an interesting way, embodied the two worlds kind of intersecting and playing off of one another.
And that gym was like literally blocks away from 87 North, right? It's like,
yeah,
we
exactly.
would
Yeah,
walk past
now,
it.
We
When
probably
we were,
walk past it.
yeah, Hinsel Gracie, LA.
Yeah.
It is blocks away from the church facility. But then I realized I really wanted to, I wanted to interview you because, you like your career is like, you're not an actor, you're a pure stunt performer. At least well, you've done some acting too.
Steve, you are not an actor.
There we go. You heard it here first.
Or no, I was listening.
I would have told you I suck.
Well,
Dude,
you're not. You're not like hybrid in the way that some of the
No.
other people.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm not a
Yeah.
stacker, as they say.
A stacked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stacker. Yeah.
Acting
Yeah.
so hard.
Acting is very
yeah.
hard.
It's so hard.
it-
Stunts
yeah,
is easy. Acting is so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did some theater acting in high school, and that was the original dream for me to become an actor. But I realized that filmmaking suited me better. Yeah. So I wanted to come and train at New York Combat Sambo. I almost, when I was in New York a year prior, helping my friend Ardit make his documentary in New York, I wanted to come by, but the timing didn't quite work out. But I thought, okay, well, now I'm making this documentary, so let me come by, train, and also do an interview if he's down to do an interview. And you were. And so we did that. And I was at the gym I came in the evening, and then I came the next day when you were doing the free
workout for the stunt.
during the strike?
Yeah, this was during the strike when we were offering free training for the stunt performers out of work.
Yeah. So I filmed a training session with
Jared.
SAG.
Yep.
Yeah, SAG stunt performers, Jarrett, Tuon, Matt, you guys.
Me.
It was great. It really became kind of a centerpiece of the documentary because it was like a great crash course. And like, you guys, I interviewed you guys while you were huffing and puffing in between pad work and drills and everything, and just got a great overview of just the stunt business and the training that goes into it, how martial arts informs your work as a stunt performer, and or as an actor if you're more hybrid. And afterwards we did a more formal sit down interview. I also interviewed Jarrett over in that corner behind you. And that was one of my favorite.
We like putting Jared in the corner.
Yeah. No, Jared, it was great.
No, we love you, Jared. Jared DeCroce was one of the first people that jumped on when we started this podcast.
Yep.
To jump on as a producer and help us out.
Yeah, no, he's great. His interview is one of my favorite things, especially when he starts talking about Musashi and the way and how it informs all things, whether it's acting, stunt work, fighting. I feel like that really sums up the documentary in one line, which is great. And then
go Jared.
Yeah, go Jared.
And then really I was so happy. I thought, okay, well, maybe this is it. Like, maybe it'll be like a 30-minute documentary, but then I think my mom just mentioned to you, my mom was there as basically a PA or production
she
manager.
basically said people were slamming doors in your face in LA.
Yeah, exactly. Which she was just talking about the film industry in general, like over the past 8 or 9 years, whether the festivals and just all the gatekeepers, it's mostly rejection. But you're like, oh, well, I can help introduce them to some folks in LA. And you connected me with Hugh Fitzgerald, the coach at the Jiu-Jitsu and grappling coach at 87 North Productions, where I wound up training along with their grappling stunt team and becoming one of his students, interviewing him for the documentary.
You even got to shoot. You got to shoot David Leitch,
Mm-hmm.
So
the director
Yeah.
of, for those
Yeah.
listening, the director of, well, the co-founder along with his wife of 87 North, but also the director of The Fall
Yeah,
Guy and Bullet
right.
Train and the first John Wick and so many.
Correct. For
Nobody, right? Wasn't Nobody?
He didn't direct Nobody, but
They
they
produced it,
produced
right?
it.
Yeah,
I think Atomic Blondes,
Atomic
Mm-hmm.
Blonde. Yeah.
Deadpool 2, Hobbs
Mhm.
and Shaw. So he's done original movies, and he's also jumped into these big franchises
But
as
he's
well.
also a lifelong martial artist,
Yeah,
and you
Muay
got,
Thai.
yeah.
So that's all covered. So it's a lot of history to cover in a short
Mhm.
amount of time, but it's all covered in the documentary. So that's a
Sure.
plug.
Yeah, totally.
But he, so
Dude, this whole episode is a plug.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Film
Yeah, yeah.
Jitsu.
February
Yeah,
8th, 2025, New York advanced screening. Don't forget.
hell yeah. The Stewart Cinnamon Cafe in Brooklyn.
Yes.
I feel like every once in a while throughout the episode, I should have just been whispering like Film Jitsu.
Yeah.
Film Jitsu. But we'll
Yeah.
have the links in the show notes for our Patreon and the IMDb page for your film and all that kind of stuff, so people can keep
Awesome.
tabs. But so you're at
Awesome.
87 North, and then of course Gokor was an easy interview for you because you know him.
So Sensei Gokor, I'd already been training with him. So when I first went to him to study with him and meet him, I kind of had the idea for this documentary brewing, but I didn't start training with him specifically
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have him in a documentary. I mean, the primary motivation was to learn from him and
Sure.
get really good at takedowns, and he's got a hybrid style of grappling with elements of judo, sambo, catch wrestling, jiu-jitsu. At that time, Gene LaBelle, we go over him in the documentary, but a legend in both martial arts and stunts.
And
He was,
pro wrestling. Yeah. I mean,
yep,
that
yeah,
guy
he was,
is, if there's anybody I aspire to be like, it's like that dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. So he was still alive when I started training there. So I did think like, okay, eventually I'll get this documentary off the ground, and if I can have both Sensei Gokor and Sensei Gene, that would be amazing. But then I think he was already kind of ill, so he
Mhm.
passed away before I got the project going. So wasn't able to actually have Sensei Gene in the documentary, but we still
Yeah.
pay homage to him and
Of
cover
course.
his history and
That was about
contributions.
2 years ago. He passed, just a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2020. It was like within the same week of when the jiu-jitsu world champion Leandro Lo got shot in the bar fight in Brazil.
Mhm.
They were like right around the same time, I think.
So you got Gokor, and then so what brought you to Erik Paulson's door?
Yeah, so that was through, so I went to 87 North, interviewed Professor Hugh Fitzgerald, and for those who don't know, in BJJ, professor is the title that we use. So Hugh's jiu-jitsu black belt under the Machados, Keegan Machado, and so that's
Who's
how
also
I think.
also in the film. Yeah.
Yep, Master Keegan Machado is in the film, and so Hugh connected me with Erik Paulson, Sensei Erik Paulson, who, if you're into MMA or grappling, he's a legend. He is also one of the old school guys who was doing a hybrid style of grappling, mixing BJJ with wrestling and catch wrestling. And, he was doing leg locks back in the day. He studied Shudo, or a style of catch wrestling that was pretty leg lock heavy under a Japanese catch wrestler, Yuri Nakamura, who was at the Inosanto Academy where Erik was training alongside future director Chad Stahelski and David Leitch and all the other
Brandon
guys.
Lee and
Brandon
Jeff
Lee,
Amada, lots
Jeff
of people.
Amada,
Yeah.
Jonathan Eusebio, who's the director now, and all those guys kind of had their origins there at the Inosanto Academy, which
Mhm.
I cover in the documentary. So Hugh had trained with Erik. I think, both being in that Inosanto Academy family under Guru Dan Inosanto, who, martial arts people will know this already, but he was a training partner of Bruce Lee, but he also
Mhm.
taught Bruce Lee Filipino martial arts,
Yep.
Kali, Salat, and so forth. And then he learned Bruce Lee's style Jeet Kune Do, and now at the Inosanto Academy they teach all of it, but they also do jujitsu,
Mhm.
and they had the catch wrestling class at that time, I
Sure.
guess. And so Hugh was tight with Erik Paulson, I guess, from back in the day, and so he just he reached out to him on my behalf and gave me his number, and I reached out to him and wound up chatting with him on the phone. And
Mhm.
I was a little intimidated reaching out to him, but he was super cool. We planned a day for me to come down to his academy, Combat Submission Wrestling in Orange County, and I did the interview with him, and it was great. It was
Yeah.
definitely like a highlight for me of my just meeting a legend like that. And not, I mean, like Gokor and like Higan and others are kind of in that rarefied air too, but I mean, like with Gokor, I'd already known him and trained
Mhm.
with him, so he had kind of been sort of demystified, or just, I knew him well by that point. But with
Sure.
Erik, it was my first time meeting him while interviewing him. And yeah, and yeah, it was just
It's
or
pretty cool. Yeah.
a memorable experience.
I remember the first time I went to his gym, and like he was like, "Oh, can you teach a class?" And I was like, "Really?"
Yeah,
And I have this
yeah, yeah,
picture of me and him standing next to each other over there in Fullerton teaching.
yeah.
It's still one of my favorite pictures because I couldn't believe I was standing there right next to Erik Paulson teaching.
Oh, it's yeah,
What were you gonna say, Paul?
So I was going to say you have all now you have all this footage. You interviewed all of these legends. How do you decide the pacing and how to edit this and what to put
yeah.
in
So
and what not to?
yeah, it was tricky. I mean, it was really a year and a half where I was filming, and then towards the end of the filming, I was also editing too, and that helped me realize what additional footage I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the martial arts, the footage of like Gokor and Erik teaching classes, that came after I did the interviews. I
Mm.
went back
Mm-hmm.
and filmed that stuff to fill it in. But yeah, it was a ton of footage, hours and hours, and I really poured over it. And I think I started, so actually, I got so much with all, the legends and the pioneers and, the
Even
stuff
even the
really.
new legends, you've got Kit Dale in there, and you've
Yeah.
got yeah. I mean, it's kind of a who's who of
Yeah. Yeah.
grappling.
So
Yeah.
I did my first cut. So I started it. It almost felt like it was almost like multiple documentaries. And so originally I did a cut that was started at New York Combat Sambo, your interview, and then 87 North and Hugh, and then Erik and Gokor. And then at that time, those were all the interview. And yeah, no, those were mainly the interviews I had. And so I did a cut that was just that. So, uh, like it was a lot more, it would have been appealing to deep martial arts nerds,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of had more of a feel of like a podcast or something,
Mm.
with just interview,
Like a web
some.
like a web series strung together or something. Yeah.
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 Yeah, like it had some action and some training footage cut into it, but not as
Right.
much as wound up being in the final cut. And then I wasn't it wasn't obvious to me how like all the footage would fit together. But then my friend Ardit, he was one of the people who kind of gave me editorial notes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another great filmmaker named Luke Yalva who wound up being the colorist, who I didn't really know him, but he was a friend of Artit's, so we had a like friend of a friend situation.
Mm-hmm.
But Art is basically like my best friend. So, but when it comes to like the film, like we've collaborated together a little bit, made some short films together, and then we've also helped each other in whatever ways we could on our feature films. And when it comes to like creative stuff, he really leaves the friendship out of it.
Oh, that's
Like it's
perfect.
all
Yeah.
business.
Objectivity is the best friend to have.
Yeah, yeah. And then my buddy, well, my Luke, he and I, we had met before, but didn't really know each other. But he was coming at it as a guy. He edited a lot of documentaries, worked as an editor and a visual effects artist in Hollywood. And he loves cinema, but he's not really into martial arts or stunts.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of giving me the perspective of someone who isn't really deep into these worlds. He's just viewing it as a cinema documentary consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good. And so, but the main note I got was, or like from my friend Ardit, like you need to have some sort, like the original cut did not have the voiceover narration. It just, I did my best to cut the interviews together and put them together logically without a voiceover. And I think it worked. Maybe one day I'll release that. Like that'll be, for the martial arts nerds out there, they'll be interested in hearing.
It'll be on the Blu-ray.
Yeah. But it goes a lot more into the technical martial arts, especially with Erik. Goes a lot more in the technical wonkery of grappling. But the main note was do a voiceover so that you can like kind of give context and perspective and all this, and it'll also help you figure out what B-roll you need to use. And also, I wasn't sure that the stuff I shot earlier in the year with the horse ranch, and also my friends Mustafa and Elsa and Malachi, I knew it was good stuff, but I wasn't sure, the connection wasn't obvious to me. But then I took the time to write out a voiceover narration, and I took my time and refined it and read it out loud and recorded it on my iPhone and did that a couple of times. And then it all helped inform the way everything ultimately came together. And it served as a roadmap actually for the editing and all the shots that I wound up using, and the way that I managed to connect the interviews. I forgot, obviously when I was on the East Coast to interview you, I also interviewed the author, Matthew Polly. And
American
so that
Shaolin mentioned before.
Yeah. And so that was, like figuring out, how do I go from Erik Paulson to Matthew Polly?
Right.
But I just naturally, doing the voiceover helped me thread it all together logically. And then obviously I found there are thematic points of intersection. Like Erik Paulson is talking about Brandon Lee, and Matthew Polly talks about Brandon Lee because he
wrote Bruce's biography. Yeah.
Right. The Bruce Lee A Life, which is basically the only like really legit biography of Bruce Lee that's like scholarly. Highly worth reading if you can handle reading a 500-page biography of Bruce Lee. Yeah. And so yeah, it was a real challenge, but it was I tried to really take my time with it, but also give myself some time constraints too, because documentaries can turn into years long. Like actually our friend Guru Alvin Katakutan.
Right.
Hopefully sorry, Guru. I hope I said the last name correctly. He told me that he has a buddy who's been working on a martial arts documentary for 10 years. And it's just become like his way of like meeting his heroes and like meeting cool people doing the documentary. And that's what it was for me too. But like, I also wanted to,
you want to actually finish
put a cap. Yeah. Actually finish it.
Yeah.
Get it out there and move on to the next thing. And so
what is the next thing? So this is going into festivals, and then what do you got? You got anything new on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, that's,
besides
right now,
the Scrabble road trip.
Well, there's that, which I think this documentary actually taught me that, the way I did this documentary as a one-man crew, you could do this. You could do a narrative film this way as well. It would be challenging, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that would be a way to make some narrative projects more feasible. Like if I
Sure.
can shoot them in this kind of style, scale down,
Mm-hmm.
shooting, recording sound myself, or maybe using a crew of like, 1, 2, or 3 people, whatever.
I mean, dude, did you see that the new 28 years later?
Yeah, it's all done on an iPhone.
They shot the whole thing on an iPhone.
I mean, they had some
Oh,
pretty cool
wow.
setups for the iPhone.
I mean, yeah, they had
Yeah,
great.
It was an
yeah.
iPhone in it.
You have great lighting
Right.
and rigs and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but
Right.
still,
Right.
I mean, you
Yeah.
basically, if you have a good story to tell, you
It's
can figure
all
out a way to
about
tell it.
Yeah, it's all about the story.
Mhm.
But there's that also in the documentary. So I mentioned my friend Malachi Silva, who now is a jiu-jitsu gym owner in upstate New York.
Mhm.
He's less famous than other people in film jitsu, but he's a very striking character. He gives this very moving speech in the documentary about not quitting
Mhm.
jujitsu, but it kind of applies to life in general. Like
Sure.
anything worthwhile is fucking hard to achieve.
Yes.
So
100%.
just don't quit. The way he says it is a lot more stirring and galvanizing than how I just did it. But anyway,
Yeah.
so my filmmaker friend Ardit saw that and was like, man, this guy could be the lead of a narrative film. Like he's got just this presence, and it probably has something to do with the fact that he is also an actor, trained actor,
Sure.
got a master's in acting from USC, I believe. But we thought of an idea of doing like a contemporary kind of Karate Kid with him playing like a thinly fictionalized version of himself, being a gym owner. In terms of cost effectiveness, we could conceivably film in his gym, so that
Sure.
would be practical in and around that area in upstate New York.
Mhm.
Or
And
even
there's really good tax incentives here right now.
Yeah. And I've learned like now at this point, I made film jitsu like a significant part of it is in New York City, and also helped with my friend Ardit's documentary Alexander
Mhm.
about the immigrant who
Right.
stole the warship and landed in Queens. And we learned that filming even in New York City itself is pretty open. Like I would say easier
Yeah.
than in LA. Like
It's
people
much
aren't.
more of a indie film town, I think, New York. Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
I
know
love it.
somebody, you can probably film anywhere. If you
Yeah,
know
we
if you know the
even
right person.
Yeah, like the film Alexander, we were following. His name is Alexander Gruda, the immigrant, and we were just following him around in his ordinary life, and we followed. He wanted to do some shopping, like buy shoes or something in the big Macy's in Times Square,
Mhm.
and we followed him in there filming everything, and nobody said a word to us about just
That's New York, man.
yeah.
Hey, listen, as long as you're mobile and you have no legs on the ground, there's no film
yeah.
permit needed.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
I was talking about an idea of remember the idea I had of a guy got a cell phone stolen and he was listening to his earpods.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he's running after the guy and he doesn't know who it is though, and he keeps losing the connection and getting the connection, and then he figures out who it is and they go on a chase
Yeah.
because of the Bluetooth.
Yeah.
And
Now, if anybody steals that idea, we're gonna come find you.
Yeah, whatever. So I threw it out to a coordinator, and literally his response was, "I know the fire chief at Grand Central if you
Yeah.
want to do this." And I was like, "Oh, wait,
Yeah.
this is just hold on."
It's that kind of town. New
It's
York
that-
is
it's that
very,
kind of a
very
place.
small, very small, and plus
Yeah.
everything is so compact and close together. Just walking through the city, you're walking through film sets and you're seeing people that
Mhm.
But so what? That would be great, man. If you're shooting something here in New York, that would be cool. And
Yeah.
we get you here on the mats a little more too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
so I love New York. I don't know if I would ever actually live in New York due to the expense,
Mhm.
but it's great. So any project that can get me back there would be awesome. So
Cool.
that's one of them. And so so at this point, I need to see what the next thing will be. But
The next
yeah,
thing that will be is
and
the advanced screening of Film
yes,
Jitsu on February 8th,
yep.
2025.
That's right.
It's just around the corner.
And all of our Patreon members who can make it, we will see you there.
Yeah. Patreon members for free. We'll have a limited number of tickets available too. And that info, well, by the time this airs, that info should already be up and out there and available. But, we hope to see everybody there, man.
Yeah.
How can people follow you, Preston?
Yeah, so you can follow me. I mean, you can, if you're old school, you can friend request me on Facebook, or you can maybe even MySpace too, or you can follow me. You could, I think my
Is that
MySpace
one?
still exists.
Is that one of those humorous moments that people didn't know you were funny? MySpace.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
No, I actually stole that from Josh Barnett in an interview. He said, "Oh, I still have MySpace."
Oh my god. Yeah.
But
That's hilarious.
yeah, but no, on Instagram, so I'm a.preston.thomas. A is my first initial. My first name is Andrew.
Oh, cool.
My website is aprestonThomas.com. That you can go find my old short films or my first feature film, Matriarch. Yeah, there's a link to that.
We can link that stuff in the show notes too, so people can find it.
There's a website for Film Jitsu. There's an Instagram account for Film Jitsu that's just film.jitsu on Instagram.
Cool.
Filmjitsudoc.com. Sign up for an email update list.
Awesome.
The site is kind of under
I have one
construction,
stupid question before we go. Maybe it's not that stupid, but I forgot to ask it. The documentary was about 90 minutes, right? Give or take.
Yep.
How much footage did you cut to 90 minutes?
So I'm sorry to say I don't know myself, but I think it's at least.
I mean, dude, you spent hours and hours here.
No, that's what I
yeah. So like with you guys, I filmed probably a total of easily 5 hours or 6 hours. I don't know. So I think, and then I filmed a lot training at 87 North. I wound up filming a lot of training stuff there too. And it got to a point where I don't know, is this really going to be in the documentary, or is this, just good stuff for us to have as a training group? But I was like, I should watch all of it just in case there's some snippet here or there that might be good for the documentary. I also pulled in footage of me competing and
sure,
just all kinds of, a documentary just pulls in all these little discrete pieces of media, photos and stuff from Erik Paulson's YouTube, which he has a ton of stuff, historical stuff on YouTube that I kind of sifted through. And but my footage that I shot was probably, I would definitely at least 20 hours, but maybe 30 hours.
Something. Yeah, it's massive. Yeah. Massive amount to go through. Great job, dude. I can't wait for people to see this.
Yeah, it was really good.
Thank you. And there's a lot of good stuff. So I'm actually thinking of creating a YouTube channel where I'll release the full uncut interviews or just stuff that I wasn't able to include in the documentary due to time constraints.
That'd be cool.
That's
extras.
So,
extras, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
For all the deep martial arts nerds out there
Nice.
who want to hear the full things.
Cool, man. Well, hey, it was a pleasure to have you on, man, and I can't wait to see you in a couple months here in New York at the screening.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can't wait.
Stewart
to
Cinema,
see you guys.
February 8th, Brooklyn.
We'll see you soon, everybody.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Love you guys. Thanks
All
so
right,
much for the support. And I guess I will see you guys in a couple months.
Cool. Later.
Peace.
Bye, folks.
Right. So long.
Fights with Friends is brought to you by Breakfall Studios and Press Record Studios. Executive producers Stephen Kepfer, Paul Veracci, and Tiago Benedetti. Produced by Richard Butler. Associate producers Becca GT and Jared DeCrose. Our video editor is Matthew Kaplowitz. Original music by Aru Luster.